Hello, my name is Nathan Uroni, and I will be giving a presentation on the fostering of resilient learners, strategies for creating a trauma-sensitive classroom. According to Nina McConico, director of Boston Medical Center's Child Witness to Violence Project, one in every four students currently sitting in an American classroom have experienced a traumatic event, and the number is even greater for those living in impoverished communities. And young children exposed to more than five adverse experiences in the first 3 years of life face a 75% likelihood of having one or more delays in language, emotional, or brain development. So, what are ACEs? ACEs are adverse childhood experiences. They are potentially traumatic events that occur in childhood, anywhere from 0 to 17 years of age. ACEs are divided into three categories and then into subcategories. So those categories consist of abuse, neglect, and household challenges. Abuse. Examples of abuse are physical, psychological, and or sexual abuse, hitting, spanking, shaking, name-calling, yelling, swearing, etc. These are children who have experienced violence, witnessed violence in the home, or having a family member attempt or die by suicide as well. Neglect. Neglect is an example of neglect are emotional and or physical neglect. Emotional, for example, would be being ignored, or physical would be being left by themselves or forgotten about. Perhaps also a child not being fed or not being fed properly, a child who is not receiving hugs, a lack of a warm environment, clothes, and love. Also included are aspects of the child's environment that can undermine their sense of safety, stability, and bonding, such as growing up in a household with substance misuse, mental health problems, instability due to parental separation, or household members being put in jail or prison, criminal behavior, domestic violence, a battered mother, spousal abuse, or even a loss of a parent. ACEs are linked to chronic health problems, mental illness, and substance misuse in adulthood. ACEs can also negatively impact education and job opportunities. However, ACEs can be prevented. ACEs can have lasting negative effects on health, well being, and opportunity. These experiences can increase the risk of injury, sexually transmitted infections, maternal and child health problems, teen pregnancy, involvement in sex trafficking, and a wide range of chronic diseases and leading causes of death, such as cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and suicide. ACEs and associated conditions such as living in under-resourced or racially segregated neighborhoods, frequently moving and experiencing food insecurity can cause toxic stress or prolonged stress. Toxic stress from ACEs can change brain development and affect such things as attention, decision making, learning, and responses to stress. Children growing up with toxic stress may have difficulty forming healthy and stable relationships. They may also have unstable work histories as adults and struggle with finances, jobs, and depression throughout life. These effects can also be passed on to their own children. Some children may face further exposure to toxic stress from historical and ongoing traumas due to systemic racism or the impacts of poverty and resulting from limited educational and economic opportunities. So, ways for preventing ACEs are as such: strengthening economic supports to families, having family friendly work policies, strengthening their financial security, also promoting social norms that protect against violence and adversity. So, having public education campaigns or legislative approaches to reduce corporate punishment, for example. Ensuring a strong start for children. This is characterized by early childhood home visitations, high quality childcare, or enrichment in preschool with family engagement. Also, teaching skills, social emotional learning, safe dating and healthy relationships, parenting skills and family relationship approaches. Also, number 5, connect youth to caring adults and activities. So that involves mentoring programs and after school programs. Number 6, intervene to lessen immediate and long-term harms. Enhanced primary care, victim-centered services, treatment to lessen the harms of ACE, treatment to prevent problem behavior, future involvement in violence, and family-centered treatment for substance disorders. We all have a physiological stress response. The physiological response to anything that seems to threaten our survival is complex, but it all happens quickly. The hypothalamus sets in motion a series of rapid changes in the nervous system and endocrine system that propel you into fight or flight. Hormones such as adrenaline are released into your body, your heart rate speeds up, your blood pressure shoots higher, your pupils dilate, your veins constrict, send more blood to your muscles, you begin to perspire, your muscles tense, your smooth muscles relax, allowing your lungs to take in more oxygen, digestion and immune system shuts down, you begin to tremble, and your blood sugar may shoot up as your liver breaks down glycogen. To deal with our survival mode and these physiological stress responses, we have fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Fight is our ability to confront the threat aggressively. Flight means you run from the danger. Freeze, you find yourself unable to move or act against the threat. And fawn, which is the response of complying with the attacker to save yourself. Flight. When you believe you can overcome the danger by running away, your brain prepares your body for flight. Sometimes running away is your best option. Here are some of the emotional and physical flight responses. Your legs are restless. You feel numbness in your extremities. Your eyes dilate and dart around. You constantly move your legs. You're fidgety. You're tense. You feel trapped. In the classroom, flight might manifest in these ways: withdrawing or becoming disengaged, daydreaming and seeming to sleep, fleeing the classroom, hiding, wandering, avoiding others, or skipping class. Fight. The fight response happens when you feel you're in danger, but you believe you can overcome the power or the threat. Your brain sends messages to your body to quickly prepare you for the physical demands of fighting. Some signs that you're in fight mode include you cry, you feel like punching someone or something, your jaw is tight, you grind your teeth, you glare at people or talk to them with anger in your voice, you feel like stomping or kicking, you feel intense anger, you feel like killing someone, perhaps even yourself. In the classroom, fight could manifest in these two different ways. Passive manifestations would be acting out in class, acting silly or trying to be funny, being hyperactive or out of control. Aggressive manifestations could be exhibiting defiance, being argumentative, or screaming and yelling. Freeze. When you feel neither running nor fighting is the best choice, you can freeze instead. Here are the responses to freeze. You feel cold. You have numbness in your body. Your skin is pale. You feel stiff or heavy. You have a sense of dread. Your heart is pounding. Your heart rate may decrease. You feel yourself tolerating the stress. Manifestations in the classroom would be exhibiting numbness, refusing to answer questions, feeling unable to move or act, refusing to get your needs met, or giving a blank look. Fawn. When you've tried fight, flight, or freeze several times without success, you may find yourself using the fawn response. People who tend to fawn typically come from abusive families or situations. An example would be if you're the abused child of a narcissistic parent, for example, your only hope of survival might be compliance and helpfulness. You can recognize this if you notice that no matter how poorly someone treats you, you are more concerned about making them happy than about doing what's right for you. So when we try to appease in the classroom, it might manifest in the way of only chance of survival is, again, being compliant and helpful, or being more concerned about making the abuser happy than doing what's right for you. The biology of trauma. Talking about the brain, we have the downstairs brain and the upstairs brain. These are characterized by Dr. Dan Siegel. The downstairs brain, he refers to the limbic system, or the part of the brain designed for survival. In the upstairs brain, he refers to the higher functioning part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex. He describes it in this way and further. Picture a brain like a house. Downstairs is where important things live. Basic functions like breathing, strong emotions, and innate reactions to danger, like fight, flight, or freeze. It's like the downstairs of a house, which is where we almost always find the basics, like the kitchen, the living room, or the bathroom. The upstairs brain, though, is more complex. Thinking, imagining, planning, these things come from the upstairs brain. We use the upstairs brain to think critically, problem solve, and make good decisions. It's important to note for those of us working with teens that the upstairs brain is not fully formed until our mid-20s. I'm going to show you a short video of Dr. Dan Siegel describing the biology of the brain with trauma.
A traumatic experience can change a person on so many levels. Often it's the body that feels trauma's impacts first and foremost. But what's going on in a traumatized brain? Could brain signals meant to save someone's life during trauma also be toxic to the brain? Here, Dr. Dan Siegel gives us a look at what happens in the brain during trauma and reveals how two key chemical reactions can have detrimental effects.
Trauma in general terms leads to two huge chemical reactions. One is the acute secretion of cortisol, stress hormone. The other is the acute release of high levels of adrenaline, essentially. And adrenaline increases the encoding of what's called implicit memory. Cortisol in the acute phase can lead to a blockage of the activity of a part of the brain called the hippocampus, which is very integrative of memory, and we can talk about that later on. But cortisol with extended periods of release is neurotoxic. So what neurotoxicity means for a developing brain is regions that are trying to grow and establish synaptic connections may be inhibited in their growth, would be one impact. But cortisol secreted for long periods of time can not only be growth inhibitory, they can actually be neurotoxic, destroying synapses that have already been established and killing existing neurons. And that can happen especially during a developmental period, but that may also be something that happens, for example, in combat soldiers. The hippocampus becomes smaller because we think the cortisol effects of chronic stress are neurotoxic, and even in an adult, or at least an older adolescent, lead to damage to this region.
So one impact of trauma on the brain is the increase in cortisol secretion, which can shrink the hippocampus, especially when it's released over extended periods of time. The second chemical reaction that takes place during trauma is something that can affect implicit memory. When trauma occurs, the brain can experience an increase in adrenaline. And here, Dr. Siegel shares just how adrenaline impacts memory.
It increases the encoding of implicit memory, like emotional memory, like fear of a dog that's attacking me. Perceptual memory, the imprinting of the perception of the dog that's attacking me. Procedural memory, the memory for action. So if I'm trying to run, but I can't, that feeling of wanting to run, but not being able to, that would be deeply encoded. Those are standard implicit forms of memory. A fourth that isn't studied so much, but clinically is probably in the same category of implicit memory is bodily sensation, the feeling in my body of the bite of the teeth sinking into my muscles. You know, that bodily sensation is different from perception. It's a whole different circuitry.
Understanding trauma's impact on the brain helps us hone our interventions to help patients recover. And in this week's webinar with Dr. Siegel, we'll get into the 3 areas of the brain that are most affected by trauma, as well as how links in the brain become broken during dissociation. It's free to watch the webinar at the time of broadcast. You just have to sign up below.
Conclusions. Student behavior is dramatically affected by ACEs. Frequent exposure to trauma can impact brain function and health. Our reactions to student behaviors affect relationships. By managing our own behavior, we model appropriate ways to manage stress. So how do we deal with ACEs as teachers? Though this seems counterintuitive, the students who seemingly deserve the most punitive consequences we can deliver are actually the ones who need the most positive and personal connection with the teacher. Often when they act out, they are letting us know that they are seeking a positive connection with an adult authority figure, and that they need the connection first, before they can or will focus on academic content. When it comes to classroom management, there are no exotic new consequences that teachers can use to get students on task. The most effective classroom management comes in the form of strategies that prevent acting out before it occurs, and those strategies arise primarily from assuming the best about our students. Assume that our students want to be here, they want to participate, and specifically, they want to learn good behavior. When we internalize and act from this assumption, our students behave better and learn more, and it changes our interactions with them. Traumatized people need to find a sense of safety within their own bodies. Younger children need our help to do that, to process that lump in their throat, that rapid heartbeat, or that sensation around their eyes when they are about to cry. The best approach, according to research, is to acknowledge the negative reactions by giving these students a safe place for a few minutes, allowing the brain and the body to calm down. With this strategy, teachers focus on their most difficult student. For 2 minutes each day, 10 days in a row, teachers have a personal conversation with the student about anything in which the student is interested, as long as the conversation is appropriate, of course. Researchers found an 85% improvement in that one student's behavior. In addition, the behavior of all the other students in class improved. These are just some ways that teachers can deal with some of these behaviors that these students who have been affected by ACEs, how teachers can deal with some of these issues and make the best of the situation and keep that student feeling safe and showing them that there's a way for them to improve. Thank you very much for watching and listening to my presentation. Again, my name is Nathan Uroni. Thank you very much.